This is Buffalo's Uncensored Sports Show. You're watching Buffalo After Dark. Welcome to Buffalo After Dark, everybody. It is Wednesday night, October 25th, and of course, it's just the two of us for right now. Adam might be in a little bit later, but Bob, how's your week going so far?
It's good. Just enjoying this Wednesday evening with you and watching the Capitals Devils game, and I'm just now realizing that the World Series starts on Friday with the Diamondbacks and the Astros, so that's exciting. And the Sabres obliterated the Ottawa Senators in the Frozen Frenzy series that happened yesterday.
That was nice.
And a bunch of other shit that's going on this week.
Yeah, that third period was enough to give a heart attack when they had those three quick goals, but we'll talk about that in the second half. But no, great effort by the Sabres overall. But what we want to do, of course, we're going to open up the show. You guys want to come on, you're more welcome to. You can dial us at 929-20. What the hell is our fucking phone number?
Are you okay?
Yeah. No, it's funny. It's like I had like a brain fart for a moment there. So 929-205-6099 gets you on the air, and yes, that'll probably make our funniest. That'll probably make our funniest moments of the year, and we're only like a minute into the show. So, like I say, it's been a long day, but anyways, we'll get started. So, the first thing we want to talk about, the Buffalo Bills. And boy, did they get their ass handed to them by the New England Patriots. And it was not even, in my opinion, remotely close. Even though it was closer on score. Yeah, close on paper, but not even remotely close with that effort, because that was fucking half-assed as far as I'm concerned.
I don't even know where to begin, honestly. I mean, there's so many problems right now with that team. Like, it's not even funny. Like, the fact is that the Bills lost 2 of their last 3 games because of this incompetent offensive scheme that Sean McDermott has specifically set up for Ken Dorsey to, like, fail on, basically. Like, I can't even describe how bad this is. I mean, I understand injuries happen in the NFL. It's, it's whatever. But if there's one thing that we have to accommodate for is Ed Oliver's presence was largely missing in that New England game, and it showed. They couldn't stop the run. I think if Ed Oliver played, it would have been a tad better.
Yeah, and I mean, look at how they were just getting eaten alive with the run game. I mean, it was not even close. Yeah, Washington just went up 3-0 on the Devils. But anyways, yeah, Ed Oliver's presence was missing. Of course, Deontay Hardy's out with that sprained neck, which luckily that's all it was a sprained neck from the week before. But
I'm pretty sure that's Damian Harris.
Yeah,
it's all good.
Yeah,
but yeah,
but you get the point. We had no run game.
Yeah, and Dawson Knox is now injured and just got wrist surgery, and they don't even know how long the fuck he's going to be out for. So maybe that's going to be a blessing in disguise. I really don't know. But I will say this, though. The offense was absolutely putrid against the Patriots. But my question is, how the fuck did the Buffalo Bills, a team that was projected to be a contender, lose to a 1-5 team? Somebody explain that to me.
Exactly. Because New England is not a good team.
No, they're not.
They're not a good team, especially on the offense.
No, they're not. And this is an issue because this solely falls on Sean McDermott for not prepping the team up. And I'm under the impression that the Bills are in need of a new voice in the locker room at this point, because it feels like to me, Sean McDermott, with the way the offense is going, it's like, how do you go from 48 points against the Dolphins just a few weeks ago, and then you play like utter shit against Jacksonville, the fucking Giants, and then this fucking fiasco? Like, can you explain this to me? How do you go from a high-scoring offense to playing conservatively to the point where it's going to cost team the games? They're at a point where this should not be in a situation at being at 4-3. You have the Jets coming off the bye against the Giants coming up on Sunday, and they are right up your ass.
Yeah, so, and they got a good win against the Eagles.
Yeah, they did. And Miami lost to Philly. So it's a bit of a benefit there. But for the Bills, they need to get this shit straightened out. I don't want to hear excuses. This is not something worth mentioning as excuses because of the fact that Ken Dorsey, from the moment he was hired, has completely botched up this offense. They couldn't even score last year until like the second half of the season. And then they just looked derailed in the playoff game against Cincinnati. And then now it's leading up to now. It's like, what do you fucking do?
Right. It's like, here's the thing. You've got 3 good running backs on this team. You have Cook, you have Harris, and of course you got Latavius Murray. And we've seen what Murray can do. We've seen what Cook can do. Why are you not running the ball? That's the first question, because New England's run defense absolutely sucks. So why would you not exploit that? It's almost like they did it for a portion of the third quarter, and then they decided, oh, let's have Josh Allen throw it every single play again. It's like, and there was actually a stat in the game where literally Allen was throwing on over 70% of the plays that were being called. And at one time, they only had like 11 touches running the ball. It's like, how can you do that? You can't sustain an offense that way. And you can't rely on Josh 24/7. Yes, he's your star quarterback, but the problem is he's not the only person on the offense. And everybody knows that it's going to be Allen to Diggs or Allen to Gabe Davis, or a lot of times Allen to Dawson Knox or Allen to Kincaid, which actually now we're going to see Dalton Kincaid step up and see what he's really about. But you can't just be going to the same 3 or 4 core players. You got to mix it up and you got to run the ball. It's that simple. If the throwing game is not working, you go to running the ball and you just keep pounding away and wearing out that defense. And they weren't doing that.
I seriously don't understand this team. I really fucking don't. Because the Bills, their offense is designed to be like the K-gun offense, but it's not executing. My biggest gripe about this, and you can disagree with me all you want on this, but the thing about Sean McDermott and Ken Dorsey and the system they currently have going on, which is clearly not working by any means necessary, but if there's one takeaway, is they were taking away his ability to run out of the pocket. That's his biggest mobility and his biggest asset. And they're out coaching him into oblivion, saying, no, that's bad. You can't be running around like that. And this mindset is now going into his head and thinking, okay, I shouldn't have to run the ball. I understand that you don't want to have injuries. I mean, that's part of the game, of course, sure. But you're taking away his biggest element as a triple threat quarterback. They're pretending to think that Josh Allen is a pocket passer when he's clearly not. He's a triple threat quarterback. They're trying to turn him into a Twilight Year Brett Favre. But the thing is, Brett Favre, which when he did it, he was in his 40s. Josh Allen is only 27. There's a big fucking difference between having to adjust the system for your age versus system changing to what you have now in your prime. And Josh Allen in 2 years, 3 years is going to be 30 years old. They can't be playing like this. So I don't understand why Sean McDermott has this philosophy to think that, oh, we have to take away the biggest element of his game. Brandon Beane, the GM of the Bills, has consistently said he doesn't mind Josh Allen running like he normally has throughout his whole career and then just slide. That's all you got to do.
Yeah.
But the biggest issue is they're taking away something from him that makes him vulnerable. You can't do that.
Right. I mean, that's one of the biggest threats when Josh Allen gets out and he runs that ball, because the thing is, no person on an offense is going to typically stop him on their own. And a lot of times, let's look at some of the runs he's had where he's been able to break out of the pocket and he just goes straight for yardage. I mean, typically we've seen it before where he can bust out for a 15, 20 plus yard run. And you usually have 2 defenders on him just to bring him out. I mean, he's very tough to bring down when you're looking at someone that's like 6'7" and like 240. I mean, that's a big person to bring down. So,
absolutely.
So that's one of the big assets. It's not like Lamar Jackson, who's a smaller QB who doesn't have as good of an arm. Josh Allen has a good arm. We know he can run. That's one of the biggest things he's been able to do. So why limit him? And I think that's more like and I agree. I do think there is some change that needs to be made, but what I would like to see, and I'm going to be a little bit, I'll disagree a little bit on this. I think Dorsey's got to be the one to go first. I think McDermott, at least on the defensive side, they're doing what they can with who they have at the moment because they are banged up on that. But let's look at the defense in terms of how they've been running it. There's a lot more pressures. There's a lot more blitz packages. We're not playing that Tampa 2 bullshit where you have people 15 yards deep like Leslie Frazier used to do.
Really? Because I saw that on Sunday when they in the last 2 minutes.
And why we saw that again, I don't know. It's not consistently that we've been seeing that, but I have noticed there are more pressures and we are playing a lot more man coverage, which, okay, that's good. But at the same time, I think defensively we're at least where we should be, if not slightly better overall in the season, although this past game absolutely sucked. But offensively, though, I think it's a big step backwards from where we were last season, which I think was a step backwards from when Dayball was here.
You could tell that they missed Daboll's offense because people wanted his head 2 years ago before Dorsey was even consulted for this job.
Right.
But now when you look at from what Daboll did compared to Dorsey, people are begging for Daboll to come back, but it's not going to happen. He's the coach of the Giants. He has this pure feud with McDermott. But here's the issue I have, and there's a handful of reasons why I don't like this idea. For one, because McDermott has the first say of how the offense is going to be run. Yes, he's the head coach. He has a perfect right to it because that's his position. That's what he's supposed to do. He's the CEO of this team, basically.
Right.
That's number one. Number two, a defensive coach has more say on the offense than the offensive coordinator himself. Really think about that. And three, there's a handful of things I want to say on this. Is that McDermott straight up said when he was asked about how they're going to fix the offense, he straight up said after the Patriot game, I don't know what to tell you. What do you mean you don't know what to tell us? You're the fucking head coach. You're supposed to rep these guys week after week after week to get ready for these games. We don't expect you to play like a juggernaut every week. We want you to be good. We want you to be, Super Bowl contenders because people have expectations on you. But if you fail to lead up to that expectation, there's going to be problems down the road because this schedule, it ain't getting any easier. You have Tampa Bay on Thursday, which they're playing pretty good football right now.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, you have Cincinnati, you have Denver, you're lucky they're terrible. You have the Jets, and then you have the Eagles, which I'm going to that game, by the way. And then you have Kansas City, then you have Dallas, and then you have the Chargers. You have the
that Dallas defense.
Yeah, and then you have the Dolphins. Please explain this to me. How is this anywhere getting fixed?
It's Murderer's Row.
They don't have an answer, and this is an issue.
Right.
I mean, and I know I'm just going on and on and on, but this has to be said because the fact is that McDermott is a big part of the issue with Dorsey. You have two guys who don't have a fucking clue how to run an offense.
Yeah, I mean, there needs to be some changes made. I would lean towards getting rid of Dorsey first, just to kind of see how things go. But at the same time, if we ultimately have to look at a new head coach, then we may have to look at that. I don't think we're necessarily at that point just yet, but I am at the point where I'm saying get rid of Dorsey.
Yeah, this is becoming a problem because the problem I have with McDermott, and trust me, this is coming from an Irishman. I could tell you that as an Irish person, I consistently tell you that we have a gene with stubbornness and pride. He's too prideful. And that's what I don't like about McDermott. I understand that he has certain philosophies as a coach and he's got a good mindset, but some of his decisions in certain games, he sticks with it and just expects different results. That's not a key to success. And people were even saying that McDermott should have been fired after 13 seconds. And that was almost 2 years ago. And I get it. That was a playoff game. That was a modern classic. We can get behind.
And that shouldn't have happened the way it did, but it did.
It is what it is. But at the end of the day, though, McDermott holds all the cards when it comes to the management and how they run this offense. He's not an offensive-minded coach because the NFL is turning into an offensive speed-paced game. It's no longer going to the defensive coach's mindset. This is not the early 2000s. This
Right.
is 2023, heading into 2024. You can't just be so reluctant with just having to be only one side of the ball does better than the other. You can't do that. That's not how this works.
Right. So then that leads to another topic we can bring up with McDermott basically running the defense and being the head coach this year. I guess the other question is, why did we not bring in a defensive coordinator when we had the opportunity to bring in a defensive coordinator? And I understand, wanting to keep some consistency with the defense, but the thing is, if you're managing the game, maybe it's time we look at bringing in a defensive coordinator, one that's actually going to not play, straight Tampa 2 like Leslie Frazier did, but someone who can bring in some different packages. Is someone like, for example, I remember when Jim Schwartz was here, great defensive minded coach, great defensive coordinator. He's done very well, like wherever he's been, except for his head coaching stint with the Lions. But at the same time, bring in someone of that caliber. At least you have someone full time with the defense addressing what's needed with the defense.
Hell, I would even say bring in like Ron Rivera, because there's reports that are coming out saying that it's becoming a turmoil in Washington with his direction that he might get fired.
Hell, I'd love to see Rivera here if that's the case.
Oh, dude, I think he can easily get the job here as a defensive coordinator. But I think there's more to this than that meets the eye. I think McDermott wants too much power. That's my biggest problem with him. And again, he's too prideful. He doesn't want to give up any sort of power. So I think he firmly believes that because he's the head coach and they know that they have a good receiver and a good quarterback, they thinking they can just easily manipulate the system and just hope that in vain that it actually works. And the funny thing is, I actually saw a comic on Facebook from the Buffalo News, and he's like a really famous artist for the Buffalo News. There was actually a cartoon of Josh Allen trying to lift a light switch, and it says offense and then on, and Ken Dorsey sitting right on the handle, and it's basically an indication like this team sucks with Dorsey running the offense. They can't win shit if you don't let him do what he's got to do.
Right. And they will not be a Super Bowl team if things keep going the way that they are. And they may be a fringe playoff team if we keep going the direction we are. Because right now, if we keep playing like we did this past Sunday, we ain't gonna make it.
No, and you know what? If honestly, I'm gonna say this now. If they don't make the playoffs, good fucking riddance. Because this then leads to McDermott possibly getting
someone will get fired.
Oh, definitely.
I think Dorsey will be the first one to go, like right after.
You know what? I really hope, Tom, that we're correct on this. If the Bills, listen, there's still plenty of football left, but there's still plenty of time to turn it around. But a lot of people are very, very
they're suspect.
What's up?
Yeah, very suspect right now.
I wouldn't say suspect. I would just say they're more disappointed and angry because they know that they have a good team, and this incompetent coach and this incompetent coordinator is fucking this team over, and they know that that they have a great quarterback. They know they have it, but they just choose not to do it. And that's the problem with them. And again, it's the arrogance and this belief that they could do no wrong and hope it stays. This is the same issue with Mike Tomlin in Pittsburgh. He keeps Matt Canada on for way too long.
Yeah,
because
why?
Yeah, this is exactly what's going on. And if you want to take a good look in the mirror as to why Sean McDermott is like this with Ken Dorsey, take a good look at Mike Tomlin with how he's handling Matt Canada. Matt Canada is easily the worst offensive coordinator in the NFL.
Oh yeah, by far.
By far.
He's a
Dorsey
joke.
is probably a very close second, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, but then of course we know the Steelers, we know the Rooneys, they never fire anybody, so they're just okay with it. And it's like when you have the crowd chanting "Fire Canada," even when it's not a Pittsburgh Steelers game and they're still chanting "Fire Canada," you've got a problem. You got to fire Canada.
Well, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if there were fire Dorsey chants going on soon.
I hope there are.
If there are?
No, I hope there are.
Oh, I thought you said they were. I'm like, really? I haven't seen any.
No, I haven't either, but I hope that it happens because honestly, Dorsey deserves to go.
He's been the coordinator, and the biggest issue he doesn't have any experience. Exactly. and this has been in my head before Buffalo After Dark this week, and that was familiarity is the key to failure. You don't want somebody who's familiar with Josh Allen, because look what's happening now.
Yeah. I mean, here's a perfect example. Remember when the Steelers brought in Todd Haley as the offensive coordinator, and him and Ben Roethlisberger hated each other, but yet they had an offense that worked for the most part, and they got a Super Bowl title.
They didn't get a Super Bowl title together.
Well, I know. Well,
Yeah.
I don't know why I'm thinking that. I know that there
Yeah,
was one, but
I get what you're saying.
You kind of get where I'm going with it, though. I mean, at the same time, it's like, even though the two of them were like oil and vinegar and they didn't mix, they still did win some football games.
They did. But again, McDermott is too prideful and stubborn. So he will do everything in his power to make sure that everything goes according to plan. You know, this reminds me of like the whole, aside from Matt Canada, this reminds me of Gary Bettman with his stubborn approach with the Coyotes. He's too stubborn to admit that he's a shitty offensive coordinator. That's what this reminds me of.
Right. Yeah, and he's too stupid to realize that it's not going to work out there. So that's kind of where we're at. But, you know, all things being said, there have to be some changes made. It's going to have to happen sooner or later. If I'm the offensive coordinator, I'm letting Josh Allen, you know, I'm unleashing him. And I'm like, do what you got to do to win.
Or do the complete opposite. Be Josh Allen, but don't even bother listening to Ken Dorsey. Even Stephon Diggs fucking hates the guy. And people wonder, if you remember back in January with that infamous clip of Stephon Diggs apparently getting quote unquote angry at Josh Allen. Yeah. I said this back in January, and that is he wasn't angry at Josh Allen. He was angry at Ken Dorsey because of his play calling. And you wonder why he was so pissed off. Now it makes perfect sense.
Yeah. Dorsey sucks. That's where we're at.
He really does. And I understand why Bills fans, well, not Bills fans, but I don't understand why McDermott is so prideful with this guy. And he's like, I have all the confidence in him. No, the fuck you don't.
The rest of us don't.
If you had the balls to say it, you would have pulled him to the side and you would have said, Ken, get your shit together. Stop being such a stubborn prick and start running the quarterback and start using your running backs. Start throwing it to there's more than one receiver. It's fucking bullshit. We should not be in this situation.
Exactly. Exactly.
It's insane.
It's insane. And of course, Dorsey can't even make in-game adjustments either. That's the problem. And the only reason we won the Giants game was because of clock mismanagement on Tyrod Taylor. That's the only reason we won that game, because we could have easily been down another 7 at the end of that first half. And we also had an opportunity to lose in the second half, and we're lucky that we didn't because of that missed call.
Yeah. Because again, whatever McDermott thinks is going on now is a key to success. Get it the fuck out of here. Throw it out the window. If the Bills make the playoffs, then they're going to keep Dorsey around for another year. If they don't make the playoffs, which is probably a benefit if I'm being completely honest, it would be a huge benefit, because then it would leave a huge mirror for McDermott to look at. Either fire himself or fire Dorsey, because you are not getting rid of Josh Allen. Josh Allen is one of the best quarterbacks in the league, and the Bills would be absolutely foolish to let him walk.
That'd be just flat out stupid. That would be like franchise suicide right there.
Basically. So the Bills, I think, the Pagulas, I think, will have the final say what happens. Either if they miss the playoffs, I'm going to say this, either McDermott goes first or Dorsey goes first. I think if it really goes south, and tomorrow's going to be a big test about this philosophy, is against Tampa Bay. Now, Tampa is not that bad. They're a good team, but they're not horrible.
Right.
But
they're not great, but they're okay.
Yeah, exactly. So, and my philosophy is, how could you possibly have any faith in this team if you lost to a 1-5 Patriots team?
Yeah, exactly.
How are we supposed to have faith in you?
Exactly. You know, here's an idea that I'll throw us out there. Byron Leftwich is out there. You want someone that's a good QB coach and someone that can do some good stuff on the offense? There you go. You can get them.
I just want somebody who doesn't really have any moral relationship with a quarterback that actually knows how to get the job done.
Right.
Gary Kubiak would be great, but the problem is he's too sick and he retired.
Exactly. But I would say I do like your suggestion about Ron Rivera, though. If he's out in Washington, bring him in. He's familiar with Sean McDermott, so.
Not really sure how that's going to play out, but if he is fired, I would love to have McDermott. I would love to have Ron Rivera as the D coordinator. But
hell, if McDermott were to be fired, elevate him to head coach. There you go. That would be one option.
I'm just saying it really pisses me off that we're even having this discussion. I mean, it has nothing with you or anything. We know that.
Yeah.
But it's more of McDermott and Dorsey. And then there's even people who have the audacity to blame Josh Allen for these problems. Like, does he have his flaws? Absolutely.
Sure.
Does he feel like he has to do too much? Absolutely. The whole job of being an offensive coordinator is to run the offense as smooth as possible without any tier pressure.
Mm-hmm.
And this is an issue that has to be addressed sooner rather than later. And it's going to be becoming bigger. It's going to be like a bonfire. It's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger if it's not addressed in the near future.
Right.
Because if they miss the playoffs, and like I said, if they miss the playoffs, this will be a huge blessing, because then they can get rid of Dorsey early and then possibly McDermott and bring in an offensive-minded coach that will actually excel his Josh Allen's development.
Mm-hmm. There you go. And actually, if we're wondering why Josh Allen thinks he has to do too much, look at Dorsey. There's your answer. Well, because Dorsey's not giving him the tools to get the job done.
Yeah, and he always says, we have to be better. We have to develop him. This. Shut the fuck up, Ken. Just shut the fuck up. Literally, just take what you have, use your running backs, and start separating the field. Stop throwing it to Stephon Diggs 15 fucking times a game. It's not
exactly.
I mean, yeah, he's the best receiver on the team, but it's not necessary.
Exactly. Stop. And you're going to get double team and triple team coverage on him. You got to utilize your other players.
I don't think I've ever been this angry on Buffalo After Dark.
It's been a while. Maybe season 1.
It's been more funny since then, but me being legit pissed off on a BAD episode, I don't even know where to begin with that.
Right, exactly. I think there was maybe one time I was, and it was like the one, and I think it was a time when, actually, no, it wasn't a BAD episode. It was actually when we had After the Horn still. It was like back in 2019. And I remember how I ended up going off about Botterill and the Sabres. And it was like, I just like totally went off for like a half hour.
Oh, God, I remember that.
Yeah, it was like, that was like, I think like the most pissed off I ever was on any episode we ever did. And my face was red because of it. I was like, holy
my face is already red now.
I know.
Oh my God, I'm so fucking pissed, dude.
Yeah. In either case, though, the Bills have got to fix a lot of stuff pretty quickly. And there are some things being done now. I mean, Deion Dawkins did restructure his contract. So I mean, it frees up about almost $4 million in cap, which I mean, yeah, that'll help us for a little bit of something where we can potentially go out and get a player, but I mean, okay, $4 million, yeah, it's something, but you can only do so much.
Yeah, but there's also some expiring contracts at the end of the year, like Gabe Davis. He's probably not going to get re-signed. I don't think. He's too inconsistent.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
I would say that is this. I do think the Bills have a plan in place for a trade, because there's no chance in hell. And again, it goes back to my previous comment. They have to do something, but I think that even revolves around Bean, and I think he's working the phones, because there was actually a rumor not too long ago that he actually inquired about Dre Greenlaw from the San Francisco 49ers, because they need a linebacker, and John Lynch shut the door on Bean and told him to fuck off. Like, yeah, why would you trade a linebacker from one Super Bowl team to possibly another? I mean, it's
not going to happen.
I would understand if they were bad and you can instantaneously be like, hey, we're interested, but that's not the case at San Francisco.
Yeah. And then on top of it, I mean, you need help on the linebackers, you need help on the safeties. Kyer Elam ain't getting the job done. We know that. So that's a bust of a pick.
Well, I mean, I do think that there's been plenty of options. There's actually been some rumors about Pat Surtain from the Denver Broncos, same with Jerry Jeudy. There was actually the one rumor that's been starting to pop up like herpes, at least lately for me, is the rumors about Hunter Renfrow from the Las Vegas Raiders. And supposedly the Raiders and Hunter Renfrow and his team are working on finding a team that's willing to trade for him, because Renfrow wants out, and I don't blame him. And because you're not getting Devontae Adams, because the Raiders already said, no, we're not trading Devontae Adams.
Yeah, they'd be stupid to trade him.
Well, I don't think that's stupid, because the Raiders are a shit show. So I think that would have really benefited him. But I think generally speaking, Hunter Renfroe would be a really nice slot receiver, but it doesn't make any sense because you also have Khalil Shakir. So it's like, why would you want to trade for Hunter Renfroe possibly if you already have Khalil Shakir? Unless you swap Khalil Shakir for Hunter Renfroe, then I think the trade makes a little more sense.
Right.
I also heard rumors about Derrick Henry, so I don't even know how that's going to come to be.
Exactly. But in either case, they need help. They definitely need to get some help because right now this team is not sustainable the way they are with being banged up, and they're not sustainable with how the coordinators are.
Yeah.
So,
hell, I would even say go out and get Jerry Jeudy. I don't give a shit. Get Cortland Sutton. I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
Get a number 2 wide receiver. Help out Stephon Diggs because Gabe Davis only shows up.
He's got stone hands.
Yeah, and he only shows up when he feels like it.
Exactly. Get a legit number 2. Get a legit number 3. There you go. And then, of course, what we have to do, we have to bulk up in the middle because obviously our offensive line ain't doing shit. So we got to bulk up. Defensively, we've got to get younger. We've got to build up. Same thing. It's like, let's start drafting a little more smart than what we've been doing, because I would say the last 2 years in the draft, we haven't done nearly as much as what we should have.
Yeah, and they also keep, inactivating DeMar Hamlin. People are starting to speculate the dude is actually dead. I don't think that's the case. I think it's just because they're so deep in that position that there's almost no room for Hamlin on the team.
Right. And I get that part of things. And New Jersey just scored, so it's now 3-1.
Yeah, but I think generally speaking, I think Brandon Beane absolutely knows, because they did this last year with getting Naheem Hines from the Colts. They needed help in the run game and they addressed it for a little bit, but they didn't utilize him enough. And he's injured for the rest of the season. So that completely died out real quickly, what happened in that trade. So I think the Bills, they're going to have to really look in the mirror and really think to themselves, okay, which position do we need help at most? Do we need help in linebacker? Do we need help in wide receiver? Do we need help in, corner? Because there are players on that team that are capable of being dealt. So I honestly think if the Bills really go south at the trade deadline, this is going to have to be the game to prove that you have to make adjustments. You have to show that if you're taken seriously enough to the point where this year you're not a Super Bowl contender. Maybe in 2024 you'll be considered it, but this year alone, you have to prove it. You can't just be going around and just spewing shit.
Exactly. So we'll see what happens there. But one last football, or actually 2 last football things. I know we're at the half-hour mark, so we'll just address it real quick. But Kevin Byard apparently is going to the Eagles, so that of course is a deal. And then that's one thing I know that you wanted to talk about real quick. So so fill us in.
Fuck me, really? Fucking Philly. First off, how do they even have the money to be getting all these players? Number one. And number two, this is the equivalent to what the Islanders used to do back in the day with the Oilers before McDavid. And they used to just keep going back to Edmonton and be like, hey, we want Jordan Eberle. Oh, we want this, we want that. In this case, the Eagles would be like, hey, we want AJ Brown. Here's some pennies and nickels for you. And then you go back a year later and you'd be like, oh, you guys want Kevin Byard? Cool. Give us some dimes and some quarters, and we'll also throw in, $500 and that's it.
Yeah, there you go. That's your East Coast stacked super team. And then, of course, you have San Francisco, the super stacked West Coast team. So
what the fuck are the
Where are they getting all this money from?
I really don't know. And for whatever reason, it's working. The Eagles are literally taking what they have. See, this is what a Super Bowl contender does. They go out, obliterate the Dolphins. Thank God, honestly.
Yeah.
The next day after that game, the next fucking day, they call the Titans and be like, yo, we want Kevin Byard. Sure. What do you want for him? Oh, we just want a ham sandwich with some cheese and maybe some M&Ms on the side on that.
Right.
You got yourself a deal, buddy.
Yep. Cat fuckery at its best.
You want to hear something interesting before we move on? You want to hear the total combined of assets that the Titans got from the Eagles?
It's probably next to nothing.
Oh, no. Listen to this. You ready? These are all the assets the Titans got in the trade. So from last spring, when AJ Brown was traded to Kevin Byard for now, the Eagles gave up a first-round pick, a third-round pick, a 5th-round pick, a 6th-round pick, and Terrell Edmonds. All that for A.J. Brown and Kevin fucking Byard.
Yep, and the Eagles improved.
By a margin.
A lot.
By a fucking margin.
Oh, good job, Eagles.
Devils just tied it, by the way.
Yeah, I saw it too. It's like, I know when we were talking, it was like, okay, it was 3-1, then it went to 3-2 already. So
Who actually runs the Titans? Seriously. There's rumors about DeAndre Hopkins already. There's rumors about Derrick Henry going to the Ravens. So it's like, what do you do in this situation?
yeah, exactly. Well, I think whoever's running the Titans is high on bath salts or something, because basically they got worse and yet the Eagles got infinitely better. So there was that. But one last thing we want to talk about, Bijan Robinson, because there's a little bit of speculation now that there's a couple issues down in Atlanta.
Well, the main one is that the Atlanta Falcons allegedly, Bijan Robinson allegedly told Arthur Smith on Saturday, he said, "Coach, I'm not feeling well. I got a headache going on, and I don't think I can play this weekend," which is understandable. If you're not feeling well or if you have the flu, by rule, you have to sit out. You can't play. And Arthur Smith specifically just says straight up, "Fuck you, you're going to play." And there's a report coming out saying that the NFL is planning to reach out to the Atlanta Falcons on why they did not disclose Bijan Robinson's illness prior to the game this past week against the Buccaneers. And a lot of people, in fantasy football or in betting with sports, got screwed over.
Oh, yeah. Yep. Lost in fantasy football. Luckily, I did not bet them on DraftKings or anything, or FanDuel. So...
Well, you played me this past weekend in fantasy, and if it weren't for Bijan Robinson's incident, I probably would have lost this week, if I'm being completely honest.
Yeah, and instead I end up losing by 2. So,
God almighty in heaven. But
man.
Seriously, how does a coach in any professional sport is that incompetent to basically say, "Okay, Bijan, oh, you have the flu? Suck it up, Buttercup. You're going on the field on Sunday." And it doesn't even get any better because it was like 95 degrees in Tampa Bay on Sunday.
Right. So then there you go. You're like sucking down the IV fluids and all that.
Yeah. And this is also coming from a guy who, quote unquote, does not believe in fantasy football, that says, "I'm not playing Kyle Pitts. I'm not playing Bijan Robinson. I'm not playing Drake London. I don't like fantasy football." Just fucking how? How does a team get away with that?
Your guess is as good as mine, man. They shouldn't. So be interesting to see what comes out of it. But with that being said, we're a couple minutes over in the first half. So of course we got the second half coming up, and we're gonna get right into hockey. So stay with us. We'll be right back.
I'm Tom Wujek, co-host of Buffalo After Dark. Founded by Matthew Keeler, Dishin is a Buffalo-based fashion label focusing on continuous experimentation in hockey. Their work consists of products, content, and experiences that inspire creativity. Playful curation provides energy that sparks a unique perspective and an ideology around seeing the game differently. Now you can save. Log on to justdishin.com and use promo code WUJEK at checkout. You'll save 10% on all of your purchases. That is spelled WUJEK. Dishin has built an influential following devoted to the infusion of creative expression through high-quality goods and tasteful collaboration. If you love creative products that push the boundaries, check out Dishin. Visit their website at justdishin.com.
This is Buffalo's Uncensored Sports Show. You're watching Buffalo After Dark.
All right, welcome back to the second half of Buffalo After Dark. Of course, I'm here with Bob. If you want to give us a call, 929-205-6099. And yes, I did not forget the phone number this time around.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, but let's get right into it. The Sabres, they're struggling early right now. I mean, yes, they got a great win in Ottawa last night, but it is just up and down and no consistency.
See, my opinion about the Sabres is I think a lot of people are panicking too early. You can't really judge a team like at its fullest until like mid-November. And people are already saying, season's over. I need attention after 6 fucking games. I don't like that. I think that it really sucks the life out of certain people, specifically with a team like the Sabres who have quote unquote expectations. I think people who literally put expectations on a professional hockey team at that young age, I think it's honestly on them for thinking that highly of them. But at the same time, these are professionals and they have to go up beyond their expectations. But I get what you're saying. The offense has not been clicking lately until like last night against the Ottawa Senators, which great win. And I gotta say though, I feel like they have bigger issues on the defensive pairings than do on the scoring. And I know the scoring hasn't been coming around lately, and I get it, but I think over time that's gonna come up.
Yeah,
I
and
mean,
they finally did break out last night, and they got 6 goals, and they actually scored early, which was good. I mean, they ran it up pretty quick.
Yeah, I mean, Tage Thompson got 2 goals. Alex Tuck had a freaking Gordie Howe hat trick. So that's
that was great.
Craig Anderson retired and signed a 1-day contract with the Sens, and that's while being employed by the Sabres as a consultant, which is magical. And then on top of all that, the Sabres were pretty much trolling the Sens all night.
Yeah, and great job last night, especially offensively. I mean, we played well, and it's one of those things. I mean, offensively, I mean, I think they're starting to gel a little bit more now, which is good. But at the same time, defensively, I mean, we're still having issues, and the only like really bright spot is the penalty kill, because I mean, we've been killing penalties pretty easily, and we're up there in the top half of the league. So at least that part's good, and that's actually better than what we've seen last year, at least early on. And I will say, you know, on top of it, at least we're playing physical, which is good, because of course, with the fight, of course, Peyton Krebs likes to mix it up a little bit. Greenway likes to mix it up a little bit. So, and of course, Cousins already had a fight this season. So at least it's good. We're seeing players drop the gloves more often, which is a big plus, because they're showing that they're not going to take crap from the other teams, and they're going to stand up for their line mates, which we didn't see for the longest time when the good old the Mittens Ralston was around. And then, of course, when good old Ralphie Boy was around. So fucking soccer coach.
That was sacrilegious that they actually brought him in, honestly.
Yeah. Well, that was the death knell of Jason Botterill. So
yeah, that still to this day was sacrilegious. But anyway,
yep.
One gripe I have, and I love that the Sabres are becoming this gritty team. I love it. I love it as much as the next person. However, they have to learn, and they're young, and I get it. They have to learn how to control their emotions, because last night the Senators scored 2 goals in 20 seconds, and that was after the scramble from Dylan Cousins and Vladimir Tarasenko. They have to learn to back off in a certain situations, because I understand that you're up by 2 goals at that point, but you have to learn to contain your emotions and, you know, get through a scramble, let them say what they have to say, because if you drag down with them, that's going to get to you emotionally and it's going to take you down. And that's exactly what happened. They almost blew the lead last night, and thankfully they were able to get their shit together and literally pulled together a win.
Yeah, and I wonder what Cousins said to Tarasenko, because Tarasenko was pissed and they were just like starting to go at it. So
it's 4-3 Devils now.
Okay. But even still, at least it's good we're getting that grit. But to your point, 3 goals in that short time period, that should not have occurred. It just shouldn't have happened.
It's inexcusable. And all night I was praising Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. And I'm going to say this now. Those last 2 goals, those were not his fault. They were more on the defensive pairings. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're Darlene. I don't care if you're Power. I don't care if you're Eric Johnson. You have to play to your strengths. Defensively. You have
soft coverage.
You got to. Exactly. And you have to cover the point, because the Senators have been getting some pretty good chances in that game yesterday. And it had to be addressed. And defensively, I think they will get it together, just like the offense will. Because, again, it's so early. You can't really determine how good they're going to really be until like midway through the season.
Exactly. I mean, we're only 6 games into an 82-game season. So, I mean, we're 2-4 right now. I mean, we've had a pretty decent effort overall. It's just one of those things. Sometimes you have those growing pains early in the season, and then you overcome it, and then you run the table. But at the same time, these are things, let's address it now. let's take care of it now. So we're set up in position to make that run to the playoffs. And I truly think that this is still a playoff capable team. They should be able to at least hit a wild card spot this year. And that's what I'm thinking. Be able to at least get to that point, because anything short of that, I would say, is a failure of a season.
I agree with you to an extent, but they also got to stay healthy because Devin Levi is injured right now. And a lot of people were like getting really angry, saying that if they played Levi while he was hurt because of that ugly loss last week against Calgary.
Oh, don't remind me of that game.
Yeah, that was atrocious. And Levi, you could tell, was injured after the play. But people were like, if they play Levi against the Islanders, then they clearly don't care and they're rushing him. So I'm glad that they smartened up and they actually did not play Levi.
Right. Because, Comrie got a couple stars and UPL got his first start the other night. So,
yeah, I mean, Comrie was phenomenal against the Islanders. I mean, I had to work, but I streamed it. I was working a night shift.
Yeah, he played really well against them. He had a good game.
Yeah, they had a great game. And then they played the Canadians on Monday. That was defensively not the best. That could have been a winnable game, but Jake Allen just decided to be a god one game and
actually showed up.
It showed up, yeah. And then yesterday against Ottawa, they played a really good game. Offense came out flying, so that was a start. But their next two games are pretty critical early in the season. They play the Devils on Friday, and they play the Avalanche on Sunday in the Goaltending jerseys.
Yeah, two tough tests right there because the Devils are playing pretty well. And of course, Colorado, one of the tougher teams historically out in the West. So, they're going to show up.
I definitely think they're beatable. Both of them are.
Yeah, we just have to get off to that quick start. That's really the key. Get off to that quick start. As long as you do that and you play sound defense, you're going to be fine. And you just got to make sure that you give whoever we're going to have in net, whether it's going to be UPL, whether it's going to be Comrie, whether it's Devin Levi, if he's coming back from that injury, you got to give them the time to be able to react. And of course, give all the opportunity possible to stop the puck. And if you're constantly defensively getting let down to the point where you're letting the goaltender get screened or you're having like no visibility to anything, then you're not going to do the job right.
Yeah, and even Eric Johnson after the Calgary game, he said, guys, I know it's still early in the year, but defense, you gotta step the fuck up, dude. That's basically what he said. And I'm really happy he did that, because if he wasn't there, they would still be playing as sloppy as they did in that Calgary game last week.
Yeah.
But I also think they played pretty sloppy defensively in the last 4 minutes against the Sens yesterday. So again, still early in the year. I'm sure that they're going to make some changes down the road, but that was something that had to be addressed. And I'm glad that somebody pointed it out early on, because if they did it later, it would have been a really frustrating season. And we would probably still be talking about, 13 seasons that you guys haven't made the playoffs and all that.
Right. Yeah, it was a pretty interesting conversation yesterday when I talked to my dad, and we actually had the conversation of, is Don Granato the right coach for the long term? And I just wanted to kind of get your thoughts on that, just to see what you think, because and then I'll throw in what I'm thinking with it after. But I don't know, what are your thoughts on that?
That's a good question. I never really thought about that. But I didn't really get a chance to really process that question until now. I would say Granato is somewhere in the middle, and I'll tell you why. Granato, to me, is a very good developmental coach for a young team. Okay. That's what I feel like he's at his strength, is that he is a solid coach for our young players. And this team is very young. So this is the type of team that can easily work with him. But the veterans, on the other hand, like the El Posos and the Johnsons, you're not going to really get a whole lot out of them, because they've already been past their prime. They know what to do and all that jazz. But they could be coached, but they're just like, he's more of a developmental guy anyway. But as a long-term solution, I don't think so. But I think at some point they will look at this if they fail to miss the playoffs. I don't think that he's going to stick around for that much longer. I think they need to get someone that has a little more oomph in them and get the experience in. And there's going to be plenty of head coaches that are going to be available this summer if they miss the playoffs. And I don't expect them to, because they're so young. So if Granato gets them to the playoffs, I think he stays. If they don't make the playoffs, then that's going to be a topic of consideration.
Sure. And it was kind of a similar mindset that I had yesterday when I had that conversation, because we thought about it and it's like, yes, developmentally, good coach. He can work with the younger players. That's not a bad thing. The veterans, on the other hand, kind of similar to what you were saying, they know what to do. You're not going to do like a whole ton of coaching with them. But then one of the things that when I was talking to my dad, and one of the things that came up was just some of the effort, especially when we played Montreal and some of the games earlier in the season, early on, and really trying to get that extra oomph out of them. So then it was something where, do you really do like a radical culture change and bring in someone that is going to totally shake the foundation? And it was interesting because when I talked to my dad, he actually mentioned someone that has like a Tortorella like mindset where they're just going to basically say you either show up or you're out sort of deal. And I well, when I talked to my dad, he was basically mentioning bringing someone similar to like a John Tortorella type character who's just gonna basically be like, this is what you do, and if you don't like it, shut up sort of deal. But then let's look at some of the coaches that might be available. I mean, there's plenty of them that I can think of. Someone along the pedigree of a Gerard Gallant would be a great addition because he has worked with younger players, but he also has a good relationship with a lot of the vets. Someone along that mindset who can get them into the playoffs in the event that it doesn't work out with Granato. I mean, I would love to see someone like a Gallant be here.
I think Gallant would be a huge upgrade over Granato. But again, I don't want to think about that entirely until later in the year. Of course, that's up for discussion. But for right now, I'm fine with what they have with Granato. But Gerard Gallant would be a great, great head coach to have. But they have to be, the approach has to be said, and they have to show the interest. If they want to take that next step, he's the guy for that. But go on.
Absolutely. So then I was kind of thinking about some other ones too, and a couple of other coaches that I mentioned in the conversation. I mean, obviously Laviolette's not available, but he would be another possibility. If that were the case, I could see him potentially doing something. I definitely do not see someone like a Bruce Boudreau ever being here.
Bruce Boudreau will never get a job in the NHL again, especially after what happened in Vancouver. No chance.
Yeah, so he would definitely be out. And then of course, for some reason, Torts came up in the conversation, but then that's going to be like your scorched earth opinion, where basically that's almost like, okay, if you're at rock bottom and you have like a super talented team that needs to be whipped into shape real quick. I mean, he did get Columbus in the playoffs, but then of course he lost the locker room very quickly. So,
well, I would have said Mike Babcock, but we all know what happened there. But I wanted Mike Babcock on the Sabres like almost 10 years ago when he was available and before he botched the Sabres and went to Toronto. I would have loved to have him. But I will say, though, from a retrospective, as like a veteran like in the NHL, there's not a whole lot I could think of for the time being as far as who would be the guy to get them over the over the hump. Like Gallant would be a great coach.
Absolutely.
But again, I think he's going to want to go to a team that's somewhere in the middle. Like, for example, with the Rangers, he went to a really good Rangers team and went to the conference finals, and he lost the locker room afterwards. So that's my biggest issue with Gallant, is that he has one good year and then he just falls off the map. Guy Boucher is just like that too, but Guy Boucher got fired. So honestly, I don't really know where to really look unless you're willing to dig deep and look into like the assistant coaches of certain teams that run the power play unit, who know how to kill penalties, things like that, a special teams guy. But you don't want to consistently, because that's what Dan Bilesma used to do. If you remember Dan Bilesma, and I'm sure a lot of us do, when Dan Bilesma was the coach, he wasn't the best locker room guy. Everybody said he was a player's coach, but that was not true. In fact, if anything, within his credit, Bilesma was a good power play unit guy. He got those players to where they had to be to their fullest potential. But he lost the locker room after that Columbus game with Sam Reinhart all those years ago.
Right.
But then again, he's not getting a job in the NHL, so you could cross him off. So really,
exactly.
But Todd McClellan would be a great coach, and he's under a 1-year deal with the Kings. So if they don't make the playoffs, which I think they will, I mean, why the fuck would you not?
Right.
I would say Todd McClellan would be a great option, but
he probably gets extended in LA. So
yeah, if they make the playoffs, I'd say, yeah, you probably get. If they make it far, I'd say yes, they're going to keep him. If they don't make it far, then they're going to axe him. That's what I think.
Right. So who knows what'll happen? I mean, it's a good question to throw out there. I mean, are we at the point of firing Don Granato now? No,
No,
no, not at that point at all.
not even close. I'm
Right.
sorry. I mean, if they're 4-3, so I mean, sorry, they're 3-4, so they have plenty of time to turn it around. It's not even 10 games yet.
Right, you're
So
only one game under 500. It's not that big of a deal.
it's really not terrible, and I don't understand why. Granato would even be in the conversation. I mean, if they make the playoffs, I think it's worth keeping him. But if they don't make it, then obviously I would consider it.
Yeah, then have that conversation and just like, where do we go from here?
Yeah,
I mean, and then just kind of go at that point. But it's interesting that it came up, and it's like, yeah, throw it out there and just see what happens. But with that being said, I mean, we did talk a little bit about this earlier. Craig Anderson is going to stay with the Sabres long term as the goaltending liaison. So glad to see him back in the organization and staying here. And that's definitely going to be a big help. Especially, I could see it being a huge help to Levi.
with Craig Anderson.
Mhm.
Yeah, as a consultant. And the whole thing was so interesting because they celebrated him on a one-day retirement contract with the Sens.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a legend in Ottawa, and you can't deny that whatsoever. It's just, I feel like the Buffalo Sabres and the Ottawa Senators, those two teams alone are like the big link to Craig Anderson because he served with Ottawa for almost a decade. And then he went to Buffalo within his twilight year. He was going to stay retired. Then the Sabres offered him a deal. And then they're like, hey, you want to come play for us a little bit? And sure enough, that's exactly what he did. And he won his last game in April against the Senators of all teams. Yep. And now he's retired with the team. And now he works as a consultant with the fucking Sabres. Right. So this whole ordeal is like a love triangle. Craig Anderson's in the middle. Then you have Ottawa, Buffalo, and then you have an executive position.
Yep. But still good to see that he's going to stay with the team. And he's actually, and I liked him when he played here. I mean, he did a lot of good things here, and he still does a lot of good things here. And I could see it being a great thing, going forward. And actually of course I have my Craig Anderson final game autograph photo, one of only a few in my office here. So
yeah, I got nothing on Craig Anderson. I mean, I may have gotten his graph when he was with Colorado. I don't really remember. I have to look, but I really don't have anything regarding any sort of memorabilia. But Andy, I think, is a great mentor for Levi. But if he stays long term with any other goalie, I think he's a great person to have in the locker room. And they're not putting him in a huge role either. They're basically making him say, hey, listen, you're going to be the guy who will try to ease attention with all of the goalies. And it's not just Devin Levi. This is everybody on the team.
Right. Exactly. And he is a fan favorite. He's a favorite of the players. He got along very well with everybody in the locker room. So, it's a good move. I mean, I'm totally 100% for it.
I'm all for it at this point, but I want to see what the rest of the team could do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And only time will tell. We're very early in the season. So of course we'll get to that point, but a couple other things we want to talk about before we wrap up, because I know we only have a few minutes, but Topi Romi and the rape allegations, it is not looking good for him.
No. So supposedly, for those who don't know, the Calgary Flames last Thursday made a public statement saying on prospect Topi Romi, who was, I believe, a Finnish NHL player for the Calgary Flames, who was at the time of that post, he said, quote, who is facing charges in Finland for rape over an incident more than 2 years ago as a minor. And the 19-year-old was the second-round pick in last year's draft in 2022 and has stepped away from his club in Tappara in the Leisure League to focus on handling the matter. And the player says he, quote, trusts that the related course of events will be clarified in connections with this trial. So you have a rapist on your team.
Yep. That's all you need is more crap going on when you don't need it.
It's absolutely insane that the Calgary Flames, I'm surprised they didn't even relieve him his contract, because that should not even be non-negotiable, whether if it's pedophilia, right, whether it's molestation, whether it's rape or assault, people make mistakes, but right, what he did was a crime.
Right. Or an extreme example, Aaron Hernandez, when he killed those people and then New England got rid of him the same day once they found out about it. And totally scrubbed them from all of team existence.
Like if you get away with assault, you have to go through the law and you have to go through jury and all that stuff and through trials. And then they make it to bring you back. Or if you have like a stupid fine or whatever, like if you do something minor, they're gonna be like, well, you're a fucking idiot. Just pay off your dues and just go. What
Right.
what he did was a crime. That's a completely different story.
Exactly.
That is not even negotiable with how the Flames handled this so far. This reminds me of the whole Mitch Miller situation when he was drafted by Arizona and they didn't even care about the status about him, saying that he was bullying a disabled autistic black kid, and then he got in trouble by the NHL and he showed no remorse whatsoever. So I think with Topi Romi, this could very well be the same thing here. He might have no remorse about his actions, and being a 19-year-old and at the time being a 17-year-old, that's considered pedophilia as well. Really think about that, because if you're 17 and you're like going around raping 14, 15-year-old girls, that's considered pedophilia.
Yeah, and that's beyond screwed up. And of course, minor can't consent anyways. So at the bare minimum, you have statutory rape.
That's
and you still go to jail for it anyways. So it's just absolutely crazy that you would even think about doing something like that.
The closest thing he could do in that situation is go to juvenile hall, but
but even still, it's fucking disgusting.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Now, I mean, he's 19 now; he can go to fucking jail.
Well, exactly. So we'll see what happens there. But last couple of things, we'll end on a baseball note today. And actually, I kind of wish Trevor was on the show today because he would totally talk about this. But it is rumored that Dusty Baker is leaving the Astros after that 7th game loss.
Yeah, Major League Baseball needed a change, and I think people were getting really fucking tired of either the Dodgers or the Astros in the World Series. And I think
the last how many years?
Yeah, seriously. And the National League and the American League have been dominated by those two teams, period. It doesn't matter if they're consistently in it together or they're not. But on the end of the spectrum, though, people are getting really tired of the Astros, just generally speaking. They want to see someone new. And this is the first World Series since 2016, which was the Cubs and the Indians. And the next thing you know, the Rangers of all teams, really? The Rangers make the World Series?
Yeah, I was surprised about that too. I'm like, how the hell did that happen?
It also baffles me because Jacob deGrom, even though he's hurt, he got Tommy John surgery, and Max Scherzer, two former Mets pitchers, could possibly get rings.
Yeah.
Really, fucking seriously.
I know. And Scherzer didn't do shit for the Mets, so.
No, he didn't. He won a few Cy Youngs, sure, but Max Scherzer didn't do jack shit. Same with Verlander.
Yeah, as I was saying, deGrom wasn't even that good, so.
It's not that he wasn't good. It was that he was always hurt, and he got paid a lot of money. So that's the only reason. And at the time that he got relieved from the Mets as a free agent, he went to the Rangers at 34 years old. So at this rate, he's 35 now. So Jacob deGrom might get a ring and might not even have to play a game in the freaking World Series.
Oh my God.
And the worst part is that he's only in his first year of his contract with Texas.
Oh, Jesus. So take that for what it's worth. But yeah, the Diamondbacks versus the Rangers. And I will say Philly had a good run this year, but oh my God, the Diamondbacks showed up and they came from behind in that series.
Yeah, that was just like, what the fuck kind of moment. Like, and the funny thing about the Phillies is they were so good in the playoffs throughout that entire run. And then guys like Bryce Harper, Bryson Stott, and all these guys, Baum and whatever, they all, and Nick Castellanos, none of them did shit in the NLC.
They disappeared.
They all went, I think in combined, they went like 5-27 or something like that in the entire series. How the fuck do you do that? You're a powerhouse offensive team and you somehow get played out by the fucking Diamondbacks again, like the Rangers, another wild card team that should not even be there.
Right. And look at what the Phillies originally did. You destroyed Atlanta. That was a good team. Of course, the Orioles lost, but that was with Houston. So,
but I will give the Diamondbacks credit. They're a good team. They really are. I mean, they did some serious damage. They took out the Dodgers. Thank God, because fuck you, Andy. Yeah, for those who don't know, Andy's a Dodgers fan. Yeah. And Tom and I are Mets fans. But anyway, so they take out the Dodgers and they took out the Phillies, two of the best teams in the National League. How the fuck did the Diamondbacks do it? I don't know. but they have some good players on there. They have Christian Walker, they have Corbin Carroll, they have Tommy Pham. They got some good players. And Tommy Pham, by the way, was just on the Mets 3 months ago.
Yeah.
He was
And then he got traded.
Yeah, he got traded to the Diamondbacks, and he's on the verge of going to the World. And he's on his way to the World Series.
Yeah, good for him. Good for him.
Jesus
Actually,
Christ.
I think didn't we see him play in August? And that was like before he got traded.
I did. I saw Tommy
All right.
Pham.
All right.
I saw him in my last game I ever saw him play in was against the San Francisco Giants in June. That was my last game.
Okay. Yeah, I was just thinking about that just now too, because I know when I was down there in August, I mean, we did get to see Ohtani play 2 games, which was pretty cool. But
Yeah,
that'll be interesting to see what happens this offseason. But
and we're throwing around the idea of another Mets game.
yeah, we'll take a look at that too. But yeah, good for Pham. And Arizona actually has a pretty good bullpen, so I mean, they should be able to do some damage in this series, which will be nice. And then the last couple of things we'll talk about besides that, San Francisco Giants, you just mentioned, they actually have a new manager in Bob Melvin.
Bob Melvin, man, oh man, this feels like deja vu to me because Bob Melvin just a few years ago, maybe 2-3 years ago, he was the manager of the Oakland Athletics, and John Fisher decided to be a massive piece of shit and run the team to the ground just to kick him out to go to Las Vegas. Bob Melvin saw the writing on the wall. He went to the Padres, who, by the way, has Juan Soto, Fernando Tatis, and Manny Machado all on the same team, and yet there goes Bob Melvin, and he took him to the playoffs a handful of times. And the 1 year that the Padres missed the playoffs, I'm gone.
Yep.
But San Francisco did the right thing by getting rid of Gabe Kapler. Gabe Kapler fucking sucks. And it's funny because he's actually linked to the Mets, believe it or not.
Oh, God help us.
Yeah, that's not going to end well. I'm telling you right now, if they don't get Chris Counsell by any means, I swear to fucking God.
And I was going to say, and they have the money to get him, so.
Oh, and if you want to hear something that's worse, speaking of the Padres, there's a rumor going around that the Padres and the Yankees are discussing a trade regarding Juan Soto.
Oh, God.
The Yankees are terrible. I don't understand why they're even interested in him.
Yeah. And it's like the Padres are not as horrible as the Yankees. It's like, why would you give up Juan Soto? He's a big part of your offense.
The only reason the Padres are even entertaining this, and let's be completely honest, is because Soto wants to get paid. And I don't blame the guy. He deserves to be paid. He's one of the best center fielders in all the baseball. But the fact of the matter is he wants to be paid like Bryce Harper. He wants to be up there with the big boys. And again, he's one of the best players in all of baseball.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't understand how the Padres are going to handle this because of the fact that, oh, you just lost Bob Melvin. Fuck, what do you do now? You just let him go to a division rival in San Francisco. That alone is embarrassing.
100%. Well, here's an idea. Hey, Steve Cohen, give him as much money as you can.
Yeah, and supposedly the Yankees, Mets, and Dodgers are all interested in Shohei Ohtani, but I think at the end of the day, it's going to be the Mets. But we'll find out in the winter meetings in a couple of weeks or whatever. But generally speaking, though, this whole Bob Melvin to the Giants thing is great for San Francisco, but it's a disaster for San Diego because, again, you have Tatis, Machado, Soto, who at that point, after he's gone, you're just going to have Machado and you're just going to have Tatis. So you really don't know. Oh, and did I mention that Blake Snell is also a free agent?
Oh, man. So good luck, San Diego.
You're going to need all the help you're going to get.
Yep. Talk about a crash and burn very quickly.
Seriously, this is what happens when you put all your eggs in one basket.
Yep. And it usually blows up to bite you in the ass.
Yeah. So my question for you is, before we wrap up for today, who do you have winning the World Series?
Well, I'm glad it's the matchup it is. At least it's going to be a lot more interesting. But I personally would have to give it to Arizona, just based on strength of the roster. I think that the bullpen is good. And they're on a roll. I mean, they beat some solid teams to get to where they're at. And they were the underdog. I mean, especially when you look at the Phillies series. I mean, a lot of people didn't predict them to win, and they came back from behind and they beat the Phillies, and they beat their ass.
They didn't just beat them. They didn't just come back and beat them. They literally fucking obliterated them.
Exactly. So Arizona's on that roll right now. I've got to give them the nod. And I would say out of best of 7, I would say they do it possibly in 6.
I actually agree with you on this. And the only thing that holds me back is the Rangers bullpen is pretty damn good, including Scherzer. So I guess we'll see what happens. But they do have some veterans on there. Like obviously they have Max Scherzer, they have Marcus Semien, who actually won the Gold Glove in Toronto a couple years ago. They also have Corey Seager, who came from the Giants, I'm sorry, the Dodgers, excuse me. He came from the Dodgers. So the Rangers are not all that bad. They got some good hitters.
Right.
But the big thing I think it's going to come down to is the bullpen, because Scherzer, who clearly won a World Series just 4 years ago with the Nationals, so he knows a thing or two about winning it. The Diamondbacks lack experience in this position. So the Rangers have people that have won the World Series before, so I think they're more determined to win it all. But my heart says the Diamondbacks, but my brain is literally thinking it's going to be the Rangers. I would have to say I'm going to give it to the Diamondbacks in 6, but I could be wrong. But we'll find out.
Right.
That's what they play
Could
the game
go
for.
either way. Could go either way. So with that, I mean, that wraps up another week, but yeah, come join us next week. We got some fun stuff in store. And of course, anyone who's been keeping track with us, this is our 4th season. We're actually at our 150th episode next week.
I can't believe it. And next week, the day after the 150th episode, we're on our way to Cincinnati.
Yes. So it will be an early start for us next week, 7 p.m., not 8 p.m. So join us an hour earlier because, we're going to need our sleep because we've got a long ass drive for all of us. So
yeah, Tom has to be up within 5 o'clock in the morning, 7-hour drive. Me and Britt, we have to go to New Jersey to get our co-host Rob Hazu in New Jersey and then drive to Cincinnati.
Yeah, you've got like an extra 3 hours on top of what I'm driving. So you're driving like 10 hours and I'm driving like 7. But I'm also stopping in Erie to visit with someone I work with. So I'm also doing that too. But even still, I mean, it's going to be an early morning for all of us. But on a good note, there is a bar and restaurant in the hotel we're staying at.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to this, man. I'm so excited. I don't know, and I've said this before on the show, I don't know if it's going to be as big as the Kansas City trip, but I definitely will say I've been looking forward to this since the day the league announced that schedule, because we've been talking about this trip for around a year now, because we were supposed to do it in 2022, and then a bunch of shit didn't go our way, and obviously it was the DeMar Hamlin game, and then it was with schedules, and then it didn't fall in the 2022 calendar year at the time. And then now we're getting exactly what I was hoping for. And that was that the Bengals game would fall in between September, October, November, or December within the 2023 calendar year. And I'm so happy that we finally got a game with the Bengals during the season, not during like after New Year's.
Yeah, for sure. And it actually will be fun too. It's going to be, I know you, your wife, and myself, it's actually the second time we're watching Bills versus the Bengals, because the last time that we saw them, it was the home opener when you guys were up here. So it's Bills versus Bengals round 2 for all of us.
Yeah, but it's our first time in Cincinnati.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, you said in the past, you said that you've drove through it, but you've never really fully stayed.
I've never fully stayed there, but I've driven through Cincinnati probably, I think like 4 or 5 times now. So that's just because I have family in Nashville. So I mean, I've done the 12-hour drive from Buffalo to Nashville several times, but last time I did it, I think was like in 2019 or 2020.
Was it really that far out? Wow. So yeah, it feels weird to me because this whole Cincinnati thing, to me, it reminds me of when we did Kansas City last year. None of us had any idea what to expect when we were there. And now that we actually have the experience of going through Kansas City and having a blast, I still think, looking back on it, I think that's the most watched Road to 32 episode that's on our playlist to date, is the original pilot episode of the series before it even began.
Yeah, and it was kind of funny because when we went to Kansas City, we literally stayed in the middle of nowhere. The airport's in the middle of nowhere. Arrowhead's in the middle of nowhere. Well, actually, it's like right on the Kansas City line, so it was
right next
barely
to
inside
Stadium.
there. Right, and then, but where we stayed, literally, there was like almost nothing there. So, and we were outside of the downtown. I mean, we stayed I want to say, we stayed in Independence, Missouri, so it's a little further out, but no, it was a great time. We actually went through downtown Kansas City the last day we were there, and of course Arthur Bryant's Barbecue, which is one of the OGs in Kansas City. That was good, and I mean,
Yeah, the Smokehouse Barbecue too. I was actually just watching that episode throughout work today because I was, I do a lot of work in like Parks and Rec and stuff like that. I actually was listening to this episode through my headphones throughout the day. I wasn't visibly watching it, but I remember what was going on. And I remember just thinking to myself while I was listening to it, like, this is going to remind me of Cincinnati, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Like, aside from the stadium tour, like, that's the biggest bummer about that trip thus far is not being able to go on the stadium tour because the Bengals are fucking weirdos because they think that doing it in the off season for a tour for the stadium is essential compared to during the season. Like, you could have just done this if you just submissively just said, yes, we will do a stadium tour throughout the season.
Yeah. And I mean, in the stadium tour at Arrowhead, that was just awesome. Like actually like being on the field, that was pretty cool. That whole thing, minus the guy that kept chanting Buffalo shit 99% of the time we were there.
Oh, you mean that stupid ass hillbilly from Alabama?
Yeah, with the missing teeth. Yeah.
Alabama.
Yeah,
Buffalo
exactly.
Shit.
Yeah. That's actually a good impression you did of that guy too. He was a moron.
Yeah, I'm so glad that the Bills won that game because if
Same
the Bills lost that game, we would have never heard the end of it.
Exactly. Yeah, but no, it was a fun time. Arrowhead was a great stadium. I mean, definitely one of the ones I would say if you love football, it's one that you have to visit. Easily in the top 10 in the league. I mean, we got to see it. Lots of cool stuff to see around there. Downtown Kansas City is pretty cool. Yep, we got to see Patrick Mahomes versus Josh Allen, which was great. So it was a good time, and they love their football, just like
they
we
really
do.
And Kansas City was it's such a unique specimen because I've never seen anything like it. Like Buffalo is a football town. New York generally is a football town, like in the suburban area and in the city and all that.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's a lot of Giants fans, Jets fans and all that, but it's nothing compared to what Kansas City does. Kansas City was like red and yellow from top to bottom, from bars, restaurants, grocery stores, fucking churches. There's everything you can think of at that time.
Yeah.
I don't expect this to happen in Cincinnati. Like there is passionate Bengals fans there, but I don't expect it to be anywhere near close to what it was. But I do think that the trip itself is going to be very similar because think of the things of the similarities. We're all driving out in one direction by car. We're all going to another city that's not called Cincinnati, but Cleveland to go to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and the Pro Football Hall of Fame and things like that.
Down in Canton. Yep,
Downton Cannon, and we might even get through Akron if that's even possible.
Well,
like,
Akron's on like in between like Canton and Cleveland, so we'll be driving through Akron at some point.
Well, there you go. That's the argument, but it just feels like that. And the only difference really from last year to this year is the Bengals game is at night. It's not a day game. So, and it's a primetime game. So there's a 50-50 chance that the whole stadium as a whole, as I saw the chart sheet, that the Bengals are asking their fans to wear orange and black to the game, which, I mean, why the hell would you not?
Right.
And if you're a Bengals fan, I mean, why the would you not, But it's just funny because it got me thinking, well, Bills Mafia travels pretty well. So I think it's only necessary that we have to one-up them.
Yeah. And it was funny because Bills Mafia traveled very well to Kansas City when we were there last year. I mean, hell, my flight from Buffalo to Chicago Midway and then Chicago Midway to Kansas City was all Bills fans. So it was a fully sold out flight both times.
Yeah, I can actually confirm that too. When Brent and I went to Washington, D.C. a few weeks ago, it was 80% of FedEx Field was nothing but Bills fans. It felt like a home game in Washington. That's literally what that felt like. There were almost no Redskins fans or Commanders fans there, and they all left by the third quarter. It was absolutely heinous, but that doesn't mean that there were some that sticked around because there were, and we got to talk to a few handful of them. But my point being is that Cincinnati is going to be a ton of fun. Like I don't know what it is. It really feels like deja vu with Kansas City. We get there, we travel, we meet up, we go to Cleveland, and then we come back for a day, and then then we go to the Bengals game, and then the next day after the game, we went someplace else. It just feels like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, when we went to Kansas City, I mean, we spent a day in St. Louis, like the second or third day we were down there. So we ended up doing that right away, which was fun. So, which I will say, shout out to QT. That was some damn good breakfast that we had with that place.
Yeah, the Quick Trip. That's what we
Quick Trip. Unfortunately, I don't think they have that in Cincinnati, but man, if they had that, I would totally grab one of those breakfast brisket burrito things.
I'm pretty sure though, Tom, if I remember, I mean, maybe you know better than I do, but I'm pretty sure that they have Tim Hortons down there.
I know they do in Columbus, and I think there might be a couple in Cleveland. I don't think Cincinnati has it, but we'll find out. But I do know where our hotel is. We have a Skyline chili and we have a Gold Star chili right in the same parking lot. So I do know.
Well,
that.
I think that's something else we have to address is we're also going to the Cincinnati Zoo on Friday. And then after that, it's like a wide open range day. I really hope that we can actually go to the Reds Hall of Fame. I would like to do that to kill the time, but I get it. You said it earlier that you want to see your friend that lives in Cincinnati or your colleague or whatever, which is fine.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I'll do like coffee meetup or something like that. I know I'm doing that in Erie the morning I drive down. And it's now 4-4 in the Devils versus the Caps. So it's all tied up. But it'll be a good time.
Hell, if that's the case, then me and Rob and Brick could probably do something to kill the time.
Yeah, I mean, and it'll be a good time either way. You know, I'm looking forward to it, and it'll just be nice to actually spend some time in Cincinnati. And obviously we're going to be at the game. So if any of you are watching from Cincinnati and want to say hi and hang out with us,
yeah, please do.
Yeah, hell, we'll be at the Moorline Lager House before the game. So,
and don't worry, we're going to be talking about this trip the day before the game. We're going to be talking about this trip again next week when we do the 150th special. So that's something to keep an eye out for. So generally speaking, I can't grade this trip yet until after, you know what I'm saying? But the one thing I'm looking forward to is I've shown it on the episode before in one of my videos, actually, is I have a cork map of the United States I bought for my wife for Christmas last year. And since then, I've been putting boards like of pins of teams that me and Britt have went to in the last year. And that's dating back to Kansas City. And then it was like Kansas City. Then it was the Jets. Then it was the Patriots. And then I got the Bills on eBay, which I have to upgrade, by the way, when I come to Buffalo. The Giants, I got that. And then, of course, the Commanders. So then I'm getting the Bengals next week when we go. And then later, after Thanksgiving, me and Brett are taking a 4-day road trip to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania for the Eagles-Bills game. That I'm looking forward to as well.
Right. Yeah, as I say, I know Trainer's joining you for that. So that'll be a good time. Trainer.
He's joining me. And one thing I will do for you guys that we're going to be able to do is we're going on a tour of Lincoln Financial Field.
Nice.
So it's going to be like a self tour because that's what the Eagles offer. But it's just interesting to think that all these tours that's going to be coming up in the future. Hell, I don't even know what's going to be brought to the table in 2024, but I just know for a fact that there is at least a team, maybe two if we're lucky, that might be offering tours.
Yeah. So time will tell, but no, it'll be a fun time. I'm looking forward to it. And then of course, you know, we'll have that Road to 32 episode once we're actually down there, and once we actually spend the trip down there. So it'll be a good time. You know, looking forward to it. And you know, there's lots of good stuff down there, and you know, it's a good city. So you know, a little bit different in terms of like how they do football and all that. But I mean, they love their football just like all of us. So
yeah,
it'll be a good time.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. And the good thing is, at least where our hotel is only a 10-minute walk to the stadium. So that's a big plus.
Well, yeah, we're also saving a load of money on parking.
Yeah. Well, they were sold out before we could even consider that. So
how does a team sell out on parking tickets? And that's even before even trying to, because you would think that when we went to Kansas City, they offered parking tickets beforehand. Right. How the fuck did the Bengals sell out their parking tickets before we even got a chance to get the fucking game ticket?
They have like no parking lots there. It's like their stadium's in the downtown Cincinnati, and they have like next to no parking. Hell, half their parking's on the Kentucky side where we're staying.
Or if you want to be a stereotype asshole and say Cincinnati's in Kentucky and not in Ohio, but we know full well that's in Ohio.
Right, right. Yep, the river separates the two states. Just staying on the Kentucky side saves us money. So
Yeah, there's a lot to look forward to. The Pro Football Hall of Fame, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, the Cincinnati Zoo, the Buffalo Trace Distillery. That's going to be exciting in Frankfort, Kentucky. Can't wait to do that either. So there's a lot to look forward to. But the only thing we're just going to have to figure out, and we'll talk as a group, is what are we going to do after the Cincinnati Zoo? Because there's like a big lump of nothing.
Yeah, well, I'll throw my vote in for Findlay Market. We can grab lunch there. It's close by, and there's like, I don't know, a bunch of different like food options in there. So,
Well, yeah, Findlay Market, of
definitely
course.
look that. Yeah, probably a good option there. So, but no, it'll be a good time. Looking forward to it. And then, of course, what we may have to do is see if that theory like Kansas City holds up, because when we went into Hy-Vee, it was like Kansas City Chiefs everything. So we might have to go into a Meijer or a Kroger down there and see if it's Cincinnati Bengals everything.
Well, I know for a fact at the Cincinnati Zoo, there is a merchandise gear over there because I saw it on a YouTube video, and they actually hold like merchandise for the Bengals, but it's not exclusive to the Bengals. Like it's Bengals gear, but it's exclusive to the Cincinnati Zoo.
Interesting. Okay, so that's one good thing to take a look at. Well, one thing I can tell you though is like if you go to Pittsburgh, it's Pittsburgh Steelers everything inside a Giant Eagle supermarket. So
yeah, one thing I also want to mention real quick before the Cincinnati Zoo is there actually is a segment and I did some research this time. Because last time I mentioned it, it was about getting up close with the elephants, and it turns out that wasn't true, and I'm sorry in advance. But what I did find out is there is a little section area in the giraffe exhibit where you can actually hand feed the giraffes in person.
interesting. Okay.
Yeah,
That's
that
cool.
would be dope. And there's manatees there. So the Cincinnati Zoo, the way it's like structured is I looked at the map. It's very interesting because it's like there's obviously it's a zoo, but it's also like a semi-aquarium ish type to it because of the manatees and all the other animals they got in there. So I'm a sucker for zoos personally because I've already been to like 5 different cities that have like different variety of zoos. There's different animals to look at, like Smithsonian, Berkeley Zoo in Connecticut, St. Louis, the Bronx Zoo, things like that. And then now Cincinnati, which is a must-see destination. It's like the most famous zoo in the country next to San Diego.
Yeah, I mean, the ones I've been at, I mean, we have a zoo here in Buffalo, obviously St. Louis, been to that. I've been to the Nashville Zoo at Grassmere, which Nashville's is actually pretty good. So I remember going to that before. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see what the Cincinnati Zoo is all about. And actually what you're describing, it sounds a lot like the Pittsburgh Zoo and Aquarium, where it's similar setup. You have both places all in one. So who knows? I might have to actually take a walk through the one in Pittsburgh sometime, but we will see. So with that being said, and Washington's up on the Devils 5-4.
It's 6-4 now.
Oh, okay. They just scored again.
Yeah, Sonny Milano scored a second goal of the game.
Gotcha. Interesting. Wonder how Rob's taking it.
Not well, I don't think.
Yeah, I just saw that 6th goal. So
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, but with that being said, though, it'll be a fun week next week. So of course, our 150th episode next week, so it'll be a good time. We'll be here for the usual hour, give or take a little bit, and then from there it'll be we'll be filming for Road to 32. So of course we'll have that out as soon as we can get it out. But that being said, yeah, actually I just thought about that because I know you were talking about revamping the intro. We might have to go on the Roebling Bridge and like do like a shot like driving on the like one of the oldest and most historic suspension bridges in the country
on our way to the hotel.
Yeah, I mean, well, or actually when we go to Cleveland, I mean, it's literally I think it's like 2 bridges down from where we're at, but it's all in close proximity. We can find it. So
okay, so we'll figure it out you're gonna have to just point it out to me.
Yeah, I can always even send you like the skyline, like the live shot of it, and show it to you. But it's all good. We'll definitely get some fun stuff in there. But join us next week at 7 p.m., not 8 p.m., 7 p.m. because we need to get our sleep for the trip. So with that, of course, thanks for joining us as usual. We appreciate it. Check us out on Spotify. We have our episodes on there first before we put them up on YouTube. And to the people that have been watching us on Spotify, we appreciate the 4.5 rating out of 5 that we've been getting. So of course, thank you for all of that. And until then, it's another week. So take care of yourselves and each other. We'll see you next time.
We'll see you next week for 150.